Here we can see a lot of benefits that organic deliver in Europe. It ranges from more labor per farm to biodiversity, less nitrogen use, but also more topsoil that also include carbon sequestrations. We believe that all these benefits can also contribute to the CAP objectives, be it environmental but also socio-economic objectives, and that should be further promoted. What is our long-term vision for putting the public good principle within the CAP? So for the moment, the main part of the CAP budget is dedicated to direct payments that have no added value. We believe that the future of the CAP is to move away from this approach of direct payments and evolve towards the remuneration of ecosystem services. So this for us would be the future CAP with only one pillar and one budget. This would consist of two measures: a public good payments framework that you can see is the main of the column, which would represent 80% of EU budget, and this would incentivize and reward farmers that do more for the environment, that, for instance, are providing good water or clean air, or are improving animal welfare on their farm. The second layer would be to have supporting measures, such as investment measures for infrastructure, but also farm advice, or promotional measures. This would consist of the 20% remaining of the budget. So we think that agroecological practices at farm level are the key lever for transitioning to more sustainable practices, and that is why the CAP budget has to evolve. But we will now discuss how the current negotiations are going in Brussels. So you know that 1 year ago, a bit more than 1 year ago actually, in June 2018, the European Commission, DG Agri, made a proposal based on 3 regulations. The first one is maybe the most important one as well, on the CAP strategic plans that the member states have to make. This is a merging of the rural development and the direct payments regulation, this new regulation. Second layer would be what is called the horizontal regulation, with the financing and the management. And the last one is on the common market organization, so market measures, basically. How does it work? We can see here that the Commission makes the proposal, but the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union have the same power, let's say, in the negotiations. They are going to decide together under what we call the ordinary legislative procedure. This means that the Parliament and the Council are now working on their positions, and when they will have it, they will decide the 3 institutions together during what we call the trilogues. Talking a bit about the budget, even if it's a bit complicated, the CAP budget is funded under the global EU budget that we call the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, the MFF. The Finnish presidency, it is actually negotiating the budget with the other member states, and they should come to an agreement, maybe not this year, but in the beginning of 2020. So this is pending. What would be the budget for the future CAP? Unfortunately, the budget is decreasing, and decreasing a lot. When we take the proposal of the Commission that makes it evolve, we are at 365 billion euros. This sounds a lot when you see the numbers, but actually it's a big decrease compared to the current period. When we take into account inflation, so constant prices, it is about 15% decrease, and even more for the second pillar, so minus 23% for the rural development, even if we know that it's in the second pillar that we can do so much for the environment. So basically, what is new in this proposal, in the Commission's proposal? there is a change in the governance. Before, DG Agri was basically managing everything. Now they propose that the power is shifted to the member states. So the big objectives would be set in Brussels at EU level, but it's the member states that are the national countries who are deciding how to achieve these objectives, these EU objectives. We believe that this evolution from a compliance-based approach to a results-based approach is a positive step. Because there's the occasion to have measures that are better targeted to the contexts and the realities of a country. But it also brings some danger with it, because of course there's the risk that member states, there's a wide gap between those who do more and those who do less. So that's why we believe that we need first a strong governance and also strong indicators, so that we can measure the progress that member states are doing year after year during the CAP. There are some good news also in the proposal. For instance, here we can see all the 9 CAP objectives set at EU level, and 3 are about the environment. So climate change action, environmental care, and also preserve landscape and biodiversity. This is a good step forward. Also, when it comes to the conditionality, we will talk about it after, but there are new obligations that have to be set at EU level, such as the protection of wetlands and peatlands, and also to have a nutrient management tool and crop rotation. This is basically what is changing. So to the right side you can see what is going to be the green new architecture of the future CAP. There are 3 main layers. The first one, that is compulsory for all farmers across the EU, is the new conditionality. It's a mix of the current greening and cross-compliance. What we have above conditionality that is obligatory is eco-schemes and climate environmental measures in the second pillar. So these measures in the second pillar don't change. It's the same principle as exists now, but as was already mentioned, eco-schemes are the novelty, because we include in the first pillar, for the first time, a tool that could be also remunerating public goods. So now that we discussed the global framework and the novelties in the CAP's reform, what are the priorities for us, the organic movement? First of all, as we said, the member states are going to have more flexibility in the way they design their objectives. So we want them to, when they are preparing their strategic plans, to really focus on the organic sector and have an evaluation of the health of the sector, and also improve their strategy for the organic sector. This would be our first priority. What else? As Eric already mentioned, we want to have a strong budget for the environment. Not only a small 30% in the second pillar. No, we want something overall, including the first and the second pillar. And we're actually quite happy because it begins to come forward in the negotiations. We know that in Brussels a lot of people start talking about this, and last week the Finnish presidency during a council meeting also talked about this position, to have an overall ring fencing. When it comes to organic farming, for the moment, as you know, it's financed only through the second pillar, and for us, the eco schemes, that's why those are so important, is because they could finance also organic maintenance or even organic conversion, depending on the member states. Second pillar, so we saw that the budget is going to be cut a lot. We're against this cut, first of all, but also we want the budget to be effectively targeted to mainly the remuneration of public goods. And yeah, finally, the strong indicators, as we said, is going to be the way to evaluate also member states and the progress that they make. So we want them to be as precise as possible and linked to the ground. So what is happening at the Council and at Parliament? Since July 2019, the Finnish presidency is working. Every month they have a meeting with other member states and decides about some measures. For instance, in November, a few days ago, they have the meeting on environmental aspects of the CAP. And next month, in December, it will depend on the talks about the budget as well. So the member states, of course, are working currently on their proposals. And here, by now, they have to submit the Commission with their beginning of the strategic plan to explain what is their logic, what would be their interventions they want to favor. What is happening in the Council? Well, it's not so reassuring for the moment. When it comes to direct payments, conditionality is being watered down a lot. This is something that worries us. And also eco-scheme, as we said, which are very important tools. Member states are split on whether to keep them voluntary or not. Concerning rural development, there's a support to bring back the aid for areas with natural constraints in the calculation of the 30% for the environmental budgets. In the Parliament, so after the elections that took place in May 2019, so a few months ago only, there are a lot of new members of Parliament. Between 60 and 70% of the MEPs are new. So they need also time to understand the reform, and they want to renegotiate what was decided in the last months. So what was decided? You know that in the Parliament, in the European Parliament, there are two committees that work on the CAP, the Committee for the Environment and the Committee for the Agriculture. The ENVI committee, as we call it, is maybe more ambitious, and they want to have a stronger stance on environmental goals. So they keep a number of conditionality requirements quite high. They include our organic farming amendments, and also they increase the Pillar 2 budget for the environment. But the problem is that the main committee taking the decisions, the Agri Committee, is not so ambitious. For instance, they don't want to have a specific organic farming article. They also want to keep 60% of the money of the first pillar for the direct payments, which is not the direction we would like to take. And also, they include areas with natural constraints in the 30% budget for the environment. So what are the next steps? Because negotiations are not done yet. In the Parliament, they will start negotiating again in December, and they would like to vote the final position of the Parliament in maybe spring 2020. This would allow the negotiations between the Parliament, the Council and the Commission to begin maybe around summer 2020, so in the coming months. So, to sum up, we believe that the future CAP can do more for the environment, the climate and animal welfare if EU politicians and member states dare to shift away from their emphasis on the direct payments and move towards the remuneration of public goods. We believe that also member states have to integrate this strategy about organic farming and organic conversion and maintenance measures that could be financed either through the second pillar or through the first one. And last aspect, which is also very important, is to have this budget. Everything is in the budget in the end, to have a very high budget dedicated to the environment. So we hope for 70% over the two pillars. Thank you.